The 3 games in the latest Ace Attorney HD collection might not be the best the series has to offer, but they do have one key thing in common that you literally cannot get in any other Ace Attorney game. They are indisputably games with Apollo Justice in them. Welcome to Brainworms, the video game review. I've been an Ace Attorney fan since high school, so late to the party, but just in time for them to pass out shots at midnight of grape juice. I remember watching the launch trailer of Dual Destinies in senior year and getting hooked, playing catch-up for a year after just to finally play it. I have always been the kind of guy who's highly susceptible to trailer hype, and that one altered my brain chemistry enough to make me play 4 puzzle adventure games, so you know it was something fierce. By the time I hit credits, however, I realized I didn't vibe with it. It's a pretty contentious game in the series, done no favors by also being really long. It sounds dramatic, but at the time, it sorta killed Ace Attorney for me. No lie, I literally met my current roommate over our shared hatred over Dual Destinies. This runs deep. I wasn't even able to get through Spirit of Justice when it originally released, either. I'd been burnt too hard. The cool thing about time, though, is that yesterday's enemies become today's video topics with enough of it. You get the chance to reevaluate past perspectives that lived rent-free, something I've been doing these past few years on this channel to fight off my innate introspective doomerism.
Man, that line was nonsense. Who writes this garbage?
Plus, it's kind of hard to be a hater when the Great Ace Attorney got localized and is, in fact, the best thing ever made. I just don't have that Ace Attorney 5 and 6 fire in me anymore. I got my never ever, so I have room in my heart for something different. The Apollo Justice Trilogy dropped just in time for me to feel nostalgic. And old. Anyway, thanks to Capcom for sending me the copy, and sorry for that. Look dude, I work a 9 to 5, and 2 of these games are so long. Leave me alone. 1 man, 3 backstories, now in HD. I'm fine, let's get going. Apollo Justice, the game, not the boy, would probably be my favorite Ace Attorney in a world without Great Ace Attorney. Or versus Professor Layton, but that kind of spiciness is best kept for another day. Come on Capcom, hurry up and give us the Stragglers trilogy, featuring the likes of the Edgeworth games and versus Professor Layton. I'm fond of the original trilogy, but I've always struggled to revisit them because, frankly, they're kinda lacking that je ne sais quoi. I must confess that I am an Apollo Justice, this time the boy, not the game, shill. He is my little scrunkle oomphy, blorbo maximum, soft boy ooh bimbly core. I used to have this Apollo Justice plushie that I used to pour milk on and suck the milk back out of it, and it was sopping wet all the time. I used to slam it against walls and it would make a loud thud. My brother saw me suck milk out of it once and I got sad when he made fun of me and I didn't pour milk on it for a week and it got rock hard and smelly and my mom had to throw it away. It was so f***ing heavy. I brought it to school one time and my backpack was soaked and I made my friends hold him and they were upset. Ever since seeing his big forehead in that trailer, I knew he would be my guy. The Big Forehead gang had never had such good representation up until this point. I think I was also drawn to how AJAA managed to set itself apart from the trilogy while not feeling out of touch with what made those games so unique. This was the first Ace Attorney designed entirely with the DS in mind, and you can see just how ambitious all of it is now that it's shed the weight of the GBA. Also, we have awkward 3D. That is always a good thing. PS1 FMVs were alive and well on the DS if you knew where to look for them, and we need to go back. I respect how much of a risk it was to turn the clock forward and ditch a lot of the old cast, with a handful of holdovers serving as mentors. Later games reintroduce more of the old guard, but this has an energy to it that the mainline series hasn't captured since. Phoenix in particular takes an extreme shift, so much so that a lot of the backlash to DD comes from some people loving this jaded version of him so much. which, to be fair, does still exist in some ways in the later games, but it's just not the same. He's not a total goofball in those games despite how it must seem, but oh do I miss lovable gambling bum Phoenix Wright. No one had single dad energy like him. I haven't touched this game since the DS release, and I just gotta say, oh, it's like coming home. Apollo Justice is a treat. A wonderful send-off to the 2D era of Ace Attorney games, even if I think it could have used maybe one more case. I was worried this would look too clean like the Phoenix Wright trilogy, but I feel like they struck a better balance with the old sprite style and the new cleaned up one. I was originally planning to praise the possibly divisive artistic choice to pixelate the edges of sprites as a throwback, but it turns out this was in fact not intentional and appears to be a scaling issue when running at any resolution not in 1080p. It unfortunately looks like this on 720p resolutions, typically on Steam Deck or an undocked Switch, and at any higher resolution like 1440p. Before you say anything, no, I didn't try out 4K, because who has a 4K monitor? Don't answer that, and if you do, instead of typing that question, give me your monitor. 1080p is the sweet spot for this game, but it is a glorified DS game. I don't particularly need to see it looking so much better than this, but it causes some annoyances in the experience when the other two games don't have this resolution problem and look great at any resolution I tried. Also, last nitpick, the text is formatted weird. Maybe it's a holdover from some old DS code for text rendering, but man, all that extra space in the text box looks weird. What's that? You want to know how these games play? Are you sure you want to waste my time with that? If you keep asking me questions like that, I might just portray you as the meek, pathetic prosecutor and or witness sprites versus me, the Chad defense attorney sprite. And then, when you truly feel at your lowest, I might do a funny scream! There are two game modes in Ace Attorney, Search and Destroy. I'd honestly be kinda shocked if anyone didn't know how the series worked by now, because it's basically been memed to death, but outside of some bells and whistles each new game adds, they all follow a similar formula. Also, maybe this is just my world-class gamer skills talking, but these games are pretty easy. It's pretty impossible for anyone to lose. All you need is a fundamental understanding of how a mystery is designed, and you should be able to clear it with no help whatsoever. Yeah, no man, I did. I'm a big boy. I know how to play video games. I have faith in you. What do you say about a game like this? There isn't any other Ace Attorney like it, yet it's kind of the quintessential one. At the point of release, this game was kind of a fork in the road on all the different paths this series could go down, but with hindsight of what came next, we can see that this is, more than anything else, the transition game. The series from here on leans into the more wackier tone, which I can only assume had to do with the loss of Shu Takumi. It's not really bad, and yes, Ace Attorney has always been wacky, but there is a tonal shift. The 3D duology is far different than anything that came before, and it's taken me years to realize that these games have their own unique appeal. That appeal just wasn't what I wanted at the time, because I couldn't let go of all the games that came before. Maybe if the second half of the series fully lived up to all of the potential established in this game, which, yeah, despite how much I love it, it does feel like it's not able to fully explore all of its ideas, then I probably would have received the next two games better. But when I played this as a college freshman, I was an idiot, so who can say? Anyway, anything on my list before we move on? Cliver is the best. And I love him. Dual Destinies, huh? This felt like an event game to me back in the day. But honestly, as a grumpy, tax-paying adult, I struggled to remember why it got me so mad. Make no mistake, I'd still argue this is probably one of the weaker games in the series, but while I was playing it for footage, I couldn't help myself. I got the dumbest grin on my face while playing through it. I didn't think I could feel Dual Destiny-inspired joy anymore, but there it was. Maybe it's the tone of the dialogue being so genuinely hilarious so often, or maybe it's Athena being endearing. I don't know. There's plenty of stuff I don't really care for. Both this and the next game have this really bad habit of giving away the identity of the killer in the tutorial case in the very first few seconds, which I know the older games did, but Apollo Justice did not do that. And it's low-key the best first case in the franchise. And I still don't care for the Dark Age of the Law stuff, but as a mystery game on the whole, Dual Destinies holds up well. So this will be neither a heartfelt defense nor a rant. I think it's fine. Bloated, sure, but fine. I think one of the aspects it's easy to fault Dual Destinies for is its hesitancy to really embrace its change to 3D, something subsequent games would run with. For better or worse, this does kind of still feel like a 2D Ace Attorney game. The models are clearly trying to recreate sprites, and that's to mixed results. I don't think the reason why matters as much anymore, but if I can speculate, I imagine this was largely because they didn't want to alienate old fans too much. And I don't think this is the main reason why, but this adds up to a lot of the small little things that makes Dual Destinies feel overall kind of safe. While I'll always value messy risk-taking over safe familiarity, I'm a big enough person to admit that safe comfort food games have value. And yeah, Dual Destinies is cozy. This is a cozy murder game. There are a lot of new mechanics thrown in here to mix things up, and while they're building off the same old core systems, they mix things up a little bit. And I must say, maybe it's just the music playing during it, but revisualization is probably one of the best mechanics in the series. It's a heater, and it always gets me going. There's also anime cutscenes now, and they look great, giving the game a prestige feel to its presentation that the past games were lacking. This is the first time I feel like Ace Attorney has felt like it's had a proper budget. So despite the limited 3D and trial scenes, it does feel like a proper console jump compared to how Apollo Justice was more of a refinement. That jump is awkward for sure, but endearing all the same and only adds to the charm. The story is interesting. Dual Destinies gets some flack for brushing aside plot threads that the previous game set up about Apollo's backstory and introducing new details about him instead. I'm not as mad about this anymore, but I definitely get where people are coming from. It and a lot of other small things kind of add up into making this game feel a bit unconfident. But I think after all this time, I've kind of just accepted it as what it is. Apollo can have 3 backstories because he simply has had the most interesting life ever, and him not getting closure is pure cosmic irony. That's not unrealistic. That just happens to God's silliest soldiers. I can relate. This section might seem weird in general, and I do apologize because I'm more interested in Dual Destinies as a landmark title for where the series goes than as its own game, but that doesn't mean I think it's bad. My roommate's probably gonna hate that, but if he complains, I'll just up his rent. I think this was a lot of people's first Ace Attorney game, which makes sense because it was the first one to hit the 3DS, and that system was crazy popular. If you were one of those people, or if you're just someone who genuinely loves the game, I'm not trying to take that away from you. I think this game is fun, and it's a net positive that it's been preserved so well in this collection and is now available on everything. My advice, just play it, make your own opinion. Spirit of Justice is a game I have tried to play several times over the years. Once on launch, once after finishing Great Ace Attorney 2, which yes I know it did no favors for that game and was really unfair, and then finally, I gave it another shot with this collection. For years I thought this was just more of the same, but after playing through it for this video, the reality is more complicated than that. I love a lot of this game, but like Dual Destinies, it does feel a bit constrained by the legacy elements of the franchise. I think I'm alone in this. That's fine, I've died on worse hills. But I think any case taking place back home in San Francisco is weak at best. SOJ's gimmick is that it mostly takes place in a country where defense lawyers are illegal and seance magic decides the fate of defendants. I'm paraphrasing, it's more complicated than that, but it's a really fun hook for a story. So, as a visiting defense attorney, Phoenix tries to fight against the system. Maya is also here. That's right, it's Ladder Girl. I think cases 1, 3, and 5, especially those last two, are some of my new favorites in the series, but it kind of feels like their hearts weren't really in it for cases 2 and 4. But for case 4, you could definitely tell they had something in it, that's for sure. Some of the puzzle logic is a bit harder to parse here than the other games, but overall, Spirit of Justice takes everything that worked in Dual Destinies and just does it better. It's criminal that it took me so long to give it a fair shot. In my defense, there are parts of the dialogue that drag. It kind of over-explains one too many things, but, and this is a big recommendation, to anyone who finds the pace of any of these games to be slow, go into the settings and enable this bad boy. It is likely single-handedly responsible for me appreciating both of these 3DS games now, a lot more than I did before. You can also kind of tell that the team felt pretty inspired by the absolute heater aesthetic that Great Ace Attorney had going for it, because the presentation is better and more expressive across the board compared to Dual Destinies. You have actual 3D cutscenes now, in addition to the high-quality anime cutscenes, and both look great. When we saw Phoenix pick up that doohickey back in 2016, we were quivering in our little boots, let me tell you. They also all hold up great in HD 16:9. Hold on. Computer? Enhance this divination sequence? Yeah, that's some 3DS aspect ratio if I've ever seen it. I'll admit, I'm pretty high on this game now, but it was losing me for a bit, up until Chapter 3, when you start really getting into the meat of Kadayan's mystery. I'm sure I said that wrong. Also, that's the lawyer town. But regardless, I can say, I think this game's cool. While it does feel like there's a lot of padding in the story, which isn't necessarily bad, overall, I think the story is really good. Even if Case 4 tested me. And oh wow, did it test me. We give it a pass because it's the only one where Athena leads in the entire game, and I always love me some Simon Blackwell, but it's still better than a lot of the original trilogy's worst cases, so on the whole, Spirit of Justice, good. Oh, is that the end of my notes? There's a lot of pictures of Apollo. Well, that just speaks for itself. I can't talk about that anymore. I sit here at the end of the day with complicated feelings about this era of Ace Attorney, but they're leaning positive. What even are these games? Are they an identity crisis? Does that even matter at this point? I'm going to say no. I harbored all these feelings for years, so much bitterness over relatively harmless yet messy games. And for what? I got caught in this fandom downward spiral, and finally giving Spirit of Justice a fair shake did a lot to strengthen my confidence in the concept of modern Ace Attorney, and I needed that. This collection is a pretty strong package with a lot of Ace Attorney in it, and while they're still not my favorites, that's the Great Ace Attorney duology, oh my god, play that, play that, play that, play that, play that. Bottom line, these games are good, and being good is fine. It's fine, I'm fine, and that's okay.
What's good? Dripped out of my gourd. Video's over. Patreon time. This month's Metal Royal Slimes are Alex Austin and Noravan, Happy Emmons, Hornkerling, I Frozen Ace, Jeremy DeForest, Moonwater, Renteca Bond, Snigs, and your friend Chuck. If you'd like to be on this list, or the list of all the names scrolling on by, then check out the Patreon. I promise We're so back. I'm going to do a new thing on this where I will answer questions by patrons, but we have 2 videos going out this week, so I'm just going to split them between both those. Sigma asked, would you rather fight 100 Pickard-sized Dogies or 1 Dogie-sized Pickard? And to that I have to say, all will be revealed in my cameo in East 10. Spoiler, I take the Dogie. How many epic backflips can you do inside a bouncy house? As my man once said, that'll be it for me. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Kisses.